use your pause button if necessary. Okay, let's begin. Okay, here we go. I arrived in Guatemala on the Day of the Dead, November 1st.
Oh.
Did I arrive in Guatemala?
Yes, I
arrived
arrived
in
on
Guatemala.
November 1st.
Where did I arrive?
Guatemala. I arrived in
Guatemala.
Guatemala.
I arrived in
on
Guatemala.
November 1st.
I arrived in Guatemala on the Day of the Dead, November 1st. Who arrived in Guatemala on the Day of the Dead?
Me. It's me.
Well, me,
I
AJ.
Arrived in Guatemala
I arrived
on November
in Guatemala
1st.
on the Day of the Dead, November 1st. Did I arrive in Guatemala on November 3rd?
No, I didn't
I didn't arrive in Guatemala
on November 3rd.
I arrived in Guatemala
on
November 1st.
On November 1st.
What day did I arrive in Guatemala?
Day of the Dead.
November 1st. I arrived in Guatemala on November 1st.
Yes, November 1st.
Where did I arrive on November 1st?
Guatemala. I arrived in
Guatemala, right? I arrived in Guatemala
November 1st.
on November 1st. I arrived in Guatemala on the Day of the Dead, November 1st. I was curious about this holiday, so I went to the cemetery to see what was happening.
Oh,
Was I angry about this holiday?
no.
I wasn't angry
I was
about this
angry.
holiday. Was I sad about this holiday?
No, I wasn't sad this
No,
holiday.
I wasn't sad about this holiday. I was curious about this holiday.
Yes, I was curious.
Who was curious about this holiday?
Me, it's me.
Well, I was, AJ.
Curious
I was curious about this holiday. What was I curious about?
The day of
The holiday.
The holiday.
I
day
was
of the
curious about the holiday. Which holiday was I curious about?
Day of the
Which
Dead.
holiday was I curious about?
Day of the Dead. I was curious
The Day
about
of
this
the Dead.
holiday. Day
I
of
was
the
curious about the Day of the Dead. Was I curious about the Day of the Dead? Or was I curious about Christmas?
Holiday. Day of
No,
the Dead.
I was curious about the Day
about
of the Dead, of course.
Day of the Dead.
I was curious about the Day of the Dead.
Yes.
So, I went to the cemetery to see what was happening. Where did I go?
In cemetery. I went to
To the cemetery. I went to the cemetery. Did I go to the cemetery or did I go to the airport?
Cemetery. I went to
I went
cemetery.
to the cemetery. Who went to the cemetery?
Me. It's me.
Well,
I
me,
went
right, AJ.
to cemetery.
I went to the cemetery. Where did I go?
The cemetery.
To the cemetery,
I went to
right.
the
I went
cemetery.
to the cemetery. When did I go to the cemetery?
November 1st. I went
November
to
1st,
the cemetery.
The Day of the Dead.
On the
I
day
went
of
to
the
the
dead.
cemetery
November 1st.
on the Day of the Dead. November 1st.
Yes, November 1st.
Why did I go to the cemetery?
To see what happening. I
Oh,
went
to see what was
I
happening.
went to the cemetery.
I went
to
to the
see
cemetery
what happening.
to see what was happening. Who went to the cemetery to see what was happening?
Me, it's me. I
Not
went.
me,
I
AJ,
went
to the cemetery
to see,
to see
what
what
happening.
was happening.
happening.
Where was the cemetery?
Guatemala.
In Guatemala.
I went
The
to
cemetery
the cemetery
was
in
in
Guatemala.
Guatemala.
Yes, Guatemala.
What is the Day of the Dead?
November.
A holiday.
A holiday.
The Day
Yes,
of the
a
Dead
day of the
is
dead
a holiday.
Holiday.
When is the Day of the Dead?
November 1st. On
November
1st.
1st. The Day of the Dead was and is November 1st.
Yes.
Okay. So I went to the cemetery on the Day of the Dead to see what was happening.
Oh.
What I found was quite interesting.
Oh.
Was it boring?
No, it wasn't
No,
boring.
it wasn't boring.
It's interesting.
Was it interesting?
Yes, it was.
Yes,
It
yes.
was
It
interesting.
was interesting. The cemetery was interesting. How did I feel
I found
about the cemetery?
the cemetery was interesting.
I felt
I
it
felt
was interesting.
it was interesting.
Or I thought it was interesting. Was it boring or was it interesting?
It was interesting.
It was interesting. Of course, it was interesting.
Of course, yes.
What
interesting.
was interesting?
The cemetery was interesting.
The cemetery. The cemetery was interesting. When was the cemetery interesting?
On the Day of the Dead.
It was
November
interesting.
1st.
On the Day of the Dead, November 1st.
Yes.
Okay, the atmosphere in the cemetery was like a party.
Oh.
Was the atmosphere very sad?
No, it was
No,
It
no,
was
the atmosphere was not sad.
not sad.
The atmosphere was like a party. The atmosphere was very happy.
Yes, very, very happy.
Was the atmosphere sad or happy?
Happy. The atmosphere
The atmosphere was
like
happy.
a party.
The atmosphere
very, very happy.
was like a party.
Like a party. Yes, like a party.
What was like a party?
The atmosphere
The atmosphere,
in cemeteries
the atmosphere
was like
in
a
the
party.
cemetery was like a party.
Yes, the atmosphere.
Where was the atmosphere like a party?
In cemetery in Guatemala,
In the cemetery.
atmosphere was like
The
a
cemetery.
party.
The atmosphere was like a party
Yes.
in the cemetery. Was the atmosphere like a party at my house?
No, at my house.
No,
As
not at my house.
In
The atmosphere
cemetery,
was like a party.
The atmosphere
in the
was
cemetery.
like a party.
The atmosphere was not like a party
Yes, not
in
my
my
house.
house. So the atmosphere was like a party. There were people everywhere.
Ah,
Families were sitting around the graves of their dead ancestors.
yes.
Where were the families sitting?
Around the graves.
Huh. around the graves.
Families
Right?
was
They were sitting around the
sitting
graves.
around the graves.
Who was sitting around the graves?
The families
The families.
was
Right?
sitting
The families
around
were
the
sitting
graves.
around the graves. Were they sitting around the trees?
No, they wasn't
No, they weren't sitting around the trees.
around the trees.
They were sitting
They
around
were
the
sitting
graves.
around the graves. They
So,
was
where were they sitting?
around the graves.
Around the graves.
Yes, around the graves.
Families were sitting around the graves of their dead ancestors.
Oh,
Were they sitting around the graves of their dead ancestors?
yes. They
Yes,
was
yes,
sitting
they were
around
sitting
the graves
around the graves
of
their dead ancestors.
Yes, ancestors.
Were they sitting around the graves of their friends?
No, they wasn't sitting around
not
the
really.
graves of
They were sitting
The
around the
friends.
graves of their dead ancestors.
yes of the dead ancestors.
Who was sitting around the graves?
The families.
That's right.
The
Families were
families
sitting
were
around the
sitting
graves.
around the graves.
Whose graves were they sitting around?
The dead
Whose
ancestors.
graves were they sitting around?
They was sitting. They
Yes,
were sitting
their dead
around
ancestors.
the graves
Their
of
ancestors.
the dead
Their
ancestors.
ancestors' graves.
Ancestors.
They were
graves.
sitting around the graves of their dead ancestors.
Yes.
Were they sitting around the graves of their dead ancestors
Yes.
or the graves of their friends?
The graves of
Ancestors,
The dead
right? They were sitting
ancestors.
around the graves of their dead ancestors.
yes, the dead ancestors.
They cleaned the graves and added fresh flowers.
Yes.
Who cleaned the graves?
The
That's right,
families.
the families. What did they add?
The flower.
They
the
added
flowers.
Fresh flowers.
Fresh flowers.
Did they add food?
No, they didn't add fruit.
No, they didn't add food.
They add. They added
Did they add
fresh flowers.
money?
No, they didn't
No,
add
they didn't
money.
add money.
They
They added
They
fresh
added fresh
flowers.
flower.
What did they clean?
They
Cleaned
cleaned the graves.
graves. Whose graves did they clean?
The dead ancestors.
Their ancestors.
They
right?
cleaned,
They cleaned
the
their
dead
ancestors'
ancestor
graves. Where did they add flowers? Where? Well, they added flowers to the graves
Yes, add
That's right. They cleaned the
flowers to
graves. and added fresh flowers. Good. I walked through the cemetery
Yes,
and admired the beauty
yes.
of all the colorful flowers. Where did I walk?
I walked through the cemetery.
Through the cemetery. I walked through the cemetery.
Yes.
Did I walk through the park?
No, I didn't walk
No,
through the
I didn't
park.
walk through
I
the park.
walked through
I
the
walked
cemeteries.
through the cemetery. Where did I walk?
I walked
Through
through
the
the
cemetery.
cemetery.
Who walked through the cemetery?
Me, it's me. I walked
I did. AJ.
through the cemeteries.
I walked through the cemetery. Did I walk through the cemetery or did I walk through the park?
The cemetery.
I walked through the cemetery.
cemeteries.
That's right. And I admired the beauty
Mine.
of all the colorful flowers.
Yes.
Did I admire the beauty of the trees?
No, trees.
No, I
Trees.
didn't admire the beauty of the trees. Did I admire the beauty of the children?
No, I admire
No,
the beauty
I
of
didn't
children.
admire
I
the beauty
admire
of the children.
Beauty of
What did I admire?
all colorful flowers.
The flowers, right? Yeah, I
Yes, the
admired
flowers.
the beauty
Colorful
of all
flowers.
the colorful flowers. Who admired the beauty of all the colorful flowers?
Me, it's me.
That's
I
right.
admire
AJ, me,
the beauty
admired
of
the beauty of all the colorful
flowers.
Where were the flowers?
The graves.
On the graves, right?
The
In the cemetery.
The
The flowers were on the
graves.
graves in the cemetery.
Yes, in the cemeteries.
Were the flowers in the park?
No, it
No,
wasn't
they weren't
park.
in the park.
in the park.
Were the flowers in my house?
No, it wasn't in
No,
my
they
house.
weren't in my house. Where were the flowers?
In cemetery.
The flowers were on the graves
in cemeteries.
in the cemetery. Where did I walk?
I walked through the
I walked
cemeteries.
through the cemetery. When did I walk through the cemetery?
On November 1st,
November 1st,
Yes.
the Day of the Dead.
I walked
Right,
through
November
the
1st,
cemetery.
the Day of the Dead,
on
I walked
November 1st,
through the
on the
cemetery.
Day of the Dead.
What was the cemetery like?
Like a party. The atmosphere
like a party.
in cemetery
It was like a party.
party.
The cemetery was like a party.
Party. Yeah.
Was I curious about this holiday?
Yes, I was curious
Yes,
about
I was
this
curious
holiday.
about this holiday. Which holiday was I curious about?
Day of the Dead. I was curious,
the Day of the
curious
Dead.
about this
I was curious
Day
about
of the
the
Dead.
Day of the
holiday.
Dead. So I walked through the cemetery. There was also color in the sky because